Protests and clashes over the death of 22-year-old Iranian young woman Mahsa Amini continued throughout Iran on Sunday, even as the government has moved to block partly or entirely internet connectivity. Thousands of Iranians have taken to the streets to protest against the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, who had been detained by Iran's morality police in the capital Tehran for allegedly not adhering to Iran's strict Islamic dress code. The protesters have vented their anger over the treatment of women and wider repression in the Islamic Republic. The nationwide demonstrations rapidly escalated into calls for the overthrow of the clerical establishment that has ruled Iran since its 1979 Islamic Revolution. Since the demonstrations began on September 17, Iranian state television has reported that at least 41 protesters and police have been killed. Separately in France, thousands of people marched in Paris on Sunday to show their support for Iranian protesters standing up to their leadership over the death of the young woman in morality police custody. Several female demonstrators cut off chunks of their hair and tossed them into the air as a gesture of liberation. Women of Iranian heritage, French feminist groups, and leading politicians were among those who joined the gathering at Republic Plaza before marching through eastern Paris. It was the latest and appeared to be the largest of several protests in France in support of the Iranian demonstrators. Meanwhile, in Turkey, a protest to support women in Iran also took place in Istanbul on Sunday. At least hundreds of demonstrators, a mix of Iranian and Turkish, gathered in the Asian district of Kadıköy, calling for the downfall of the Iranian government and for women's freedom. Protesters burned hijabs and cut their hair to show their solidarity with women in Iran, subject to harsh laws on covering their heads. The Cumhuriyet newspaper and other news sites reported that 5 women were detained as they tried to make a statement in Turkey's capital, Ankara. The similar protest also occurred in Lebanon, where dozens of protesters gathered in Beirut on Sunday to show support for women's rights in Iran following the death of Mahsa Amini in early September. The demonstrators criticized the Iranian government, and one of them said that the dictatorial and theocratic regime should be taken down and should not exist in the 21st century, where the whole world respects international human rights law. Human rights groups have condemned Iranian security forces for cracking down on protesters, and protesters around the world have expressed their anger over the treatment of women in Iran.